Hey everybody, welcome to my Suburban Oasis. My name is Soleil and I garden in a zone 6A in mid-Michigan. We used to be a 5B, but because of the recent changes in the map with zones, we are now at 6A. I'm not doing a whole lot of changes to the way that I'm gardening, however, so if you're worried about that, just relax. We're just kind of hanging out in zone 5B because 6A is right on the edge, and we'll see how it goes. So right now I'm out in the back, and this garden has a long border back here. I have an all the rage rose that's here that's kind of doing okay, but not super great. And I also have a strawberry Sunday hydrangea that's over here that's kind of tucked in a corner where it's too small. Usually as gardeners, we have a tendency to plant things a little bit too close because we just buy all these plants and then have to find a place to put them. Well, over time that kind of works its way out as some things just don't quite make it, or other times you want to move them to a new spot. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to transplant a strawberry Sunday hydrangea, and then we are going to head over to the potager garden and we are going to clean up the Bergenia and take off some of that growth that looks like it's kind of been damaged by the winter to make room for the new growth and the blooms. All right, let's get started. So tucked back here, kind of behind this topiary arborvitae, is a strawberry Sunday hydrangea. So we're going to dig that one out. And yes, I know it's freshly mulched over here, but we have plenty of mulch to remulch. And we are going to take that over here after we dig out this rose. And this is an all the rage rose. I have a couple others in the garden, but it's not doing super fantastic in this area. I also may end up taking out this deutzia that's right here as the strawberry Sunday hydrangea fills in, but I'm not going to do that today. We're just going to wait and see how the strawberry Sunday goes. So let's get digging. All right, well, I've made my way back into this corner and hopefully you'll be able to see what it is that I'm doing here as I dig out this strawberry Sunday hydrangea. The nice thing about hydrangeas that are paniculata hydrangeas is they don't have super significant root systems, but they still are really, really hardy and fairly drought tolerant as well. So I shouldn't have much of a problem digging this one up. Now this time of year I tend to get quite a few new subscribers or viewers just because people are starting their gardening season and they're looking for ideas. And I often get questions about this shovel that I'm using. So I just want to share with you that this shovel is called the Perennial Root Slayer shovel. And it's a very special shovel that has sharp edges on it. It has an ergonomic handle. And for me, it makes every job that much easier. So I highly recommend it. It also works really well in like rocky soils, and it just slices through clay soil as well. I have a link in the description for it if you're interested in looking at it and checking it out. This is the smaller version. They also have a much bigger version, but because I'm small, I get the small version. All right, I think we can get it now. Just trying to shake off a little bit of the soil and also try to get as many roots as we can. There we go. All right, now we need to dig up that rose. Now roses tend to have fairly long root systems, but this one's only been in the ground for maybe a year, maybe 2 years. 2 years. Otherwise I would have thought that it had a little bit more of a chance to do better here, but I just don't think it likes it that much. It does have some nice new growth on it, so I'll pot it up and think about where I might put it. I might even put it in one of the planter pots by the pool. Now I don't want to get too close to this 9-bark, so I'm not going to plant exactly in the spot where I dug up the rose. I'm going to plant a little bit further over where some of these tulips are. These tulips though, As you can see, I don't have a lot of blooms on them. They're on their, I think, 3rd year maybe. But I'll dig them up, and I can always replant them if I want to, if they come up with a bulb, which it doesn't appear they're going to. I just found a stepping stone. Sometimes things just tend to get buried in the garden, don't they? And a plant stake. Oh no, it's a plant label. This is really nice soil over here though, so the hydrangea should like it. Should get a little bit more sun here, as well as a little bit more rain and water. So I'm excited to see how it grows. I'm trying to do this delicately and avoid breaking off any of the brand new growth on it from this spring. Trying to decide if this needs to go deeper or not. I think a little bit. This garden bed has been around for a really long time, so that's why the soil is so good over here. But using mulch every year really helps to continue to improve the soil. All right, let's take a look at this from the front now and see how it looks in this space. I think it looks pretty good. It's going to look a little bit crowded at first because of the fact that there's these tulips in bloom, but pretty soon the tulips and the daffodils are going to go away, and the only thing that will be seen is the foliage and the blooms on this hydrangea. So I think it's in a good spot, but I want to turn it a little bit. I actually think I want this side forward. Yes, I like that much better. Now, Panicle hydrangeas will bloom on new wood, so it's not a problem if, you know, some of them get pruned a little bit later in the season because they don't bloom actually until here usually don't start blooming until at least June, usually July. But then they give you a beautiful color for the whole rest of the season. So I'm going to go grab a little bit of mulch just to tidy this up and make it look a little bit prettier. But first I'm going to water it in. One rule of thumb to remember with mulch is you don't want to mulch a new plant if the soil is already dry. So you definitely want to make sure it gets watered before you put the mulch on top. That way the mulch will help ensure that the water stays in and won't absorb the water itself. You want to get it down, down, down around the roots. The soil is still moist because we've had plenty of rain, and we may get some tomorrow. Ideally, it would have been an overcast day for me to do this, but you take the days that you can get in Michigan. All right, let me get some nice mulch to put on top here. Before I throw this mulch down, I'm going to pull some of this grassy-like foliage, which really belongs to some of the crocuses that are in this garden bed. That'll help just tidy it up a little bit more. You got some nice little heucheras that are in here that are just starting to put forth their spring growth. That will also provide some nice foliage color in here shortly. Also need to throw some of this mulch back where I dug. All right, well, now that we have moved this, I think we've got a great new spot for it. This one is going to really light up the area next to this arborvitae topiary. And then as you look down the line, there's going to be a nice repetition of panicle hydrangeas because we have a quick fire hydrangea down here between the 9-bark and the barberry. And then after that, down by the arborvitae, we have a firelight hydrangea. So it'll be a really beautiful show of different types of hydrangeas, along with also different multi-plantings of shrubs and different types of perennials like heuchera. It's going to be gorgeous. I can't wait. All right, let's head over now to the potager garden and do some cleanup of the Bergenia. Well, one of the things I love about Bergenia is just how easygoing it is. There's not a lot that you have to do. The only thing that I do is every once in a while I do a little bit of division if it gets a bit crowded, which it's fairly slow growing, so that doesn't happen too often, but it still happens enough so that you can get more divisions within your garden. At the same time, all it does in terms of cleanup is require some of the foliage and the spent blooms to be clipped right around this time. So right now the blooms are just starting, but I want to get the dead foliage away because I think that detracts from the beautiful beauty of the flowers. All right, let me show you how we're doing it. So this Bergenia right here provides a perfect example of some foliage that just is kind of a little bit crispy after the winter. And so those are the foliage pieces that we're going to take off. And we'll just go all the way down to the bottom and clip it, and then we'll get rid of those leaves. These are fairly leathery leaves, so they don't compost great, but I still do throw them in there. They just take a lot longer to break down. I cannot believe how tall the blooms are on this Bergenia. Really is quite spectacular this year. Hopefully we'll get even more of them. We just have a couple so far. These leaves can get really huge. I mean, look at the size of this leaf. Don't be afraid to really get after any of the leaves that look like they've been damaged. The Bergenia will flush out with some nice new leaves, and you'll be happy that you have a nice clean slate. Now the nice thing about this for me is that it provides evergreen structure in an area of the country that we don't have a ton of evergreen low-growing herbaceous perennials, but this is one, and I'm so happy that I found it, because even one plant can bring a lot of green to the garden when there's nothing but snow or gray and white. This Bergenia is oftentimes referred to as pig squeak because you can hear the leaves squeak when you rub them together. So that's just kind of a common name for it. And there's several different kinds. They get different sizes. And some of the flowers are slightly different. You may get a more red bloom, or a more pink bloom, or a more white bloom, depending on the variety. But they're definitely worth while growing. I certainly think they are a workhorse for my garden. Here's one that's really damaged. It will look a lot better after we get this one cleaned up. Some of them get the wind, depending on where they're placed, more than the others. So I'm curious how many of you have tried Bergenia, and if you like it, how it's done in your area and in your zone. Well, I can't help but point out this beautiful amber Jubilee 9-bark right now and its gorgeous spring foliage. It certainly sets off this Bergenia, doesn't it? And I think it looks a lot nicer now that it's cleaned up. We'll take a look back this way as well. But you can see it just is a little bit tidier, a little bit more green, and now we can really see those blooms poking out. Hope to see more soon. Well, thanks so much for joining me in the garden today. I hope you enjoyed transplanting and cleaning up Bergenia. It was really fun. We'll see you next time.